Hey guys, what's going on? Dylan here from FabricationGuy.com, and today we're going to be comparing the Milwaukee M18 Fuel half-inch mid-torque impact, the 2860-20, versus the M18 Fuel half-inch high-torque impact, the 2767-20. This is the new, really popular impact right now, and I want to talk to you guys about this. And the reason I'm making this video is because in my previous video, I used this comparison chart to explain to people, don't get scammed by buying lesser versions of the half-inch impact from Milwaukee because they cost about the same price. You want to make sure that you get the 2767-20 because for the price, it gives you really, really good performance, 1,000 foot-pounds of fastening torque, 1,400 foot-pounds of nut-busting torque. And I was explaining to people that this is the model number that you want to get. You don't want to get these ones here because these are the non-brushless versions. You don't want to get the compact impact because the torque rating is super low, and there's really not, in my opinion, any applications that really match that low of a torque rating. I said the mid-torque impact was okay, but with the performance numbers, I really thought you're better off going with the high-torque version. And then I also explained that the high-torque version of the 2763-20 was actually the previous generation to the 2767-20. And oftentimes, both of these guns are sold at the same price, so you're better off getting the newer version, the 2767-20, because it's the same price and it has better performance. So first off, I'm going to put links to both the mid-torque version and the correct high-torque impact in the video description on Amazon. So if you guys are looking for the correct ones, they'll be in the video description. But today I want to talk about when you would want to choose a mid-torque impact over the high torque, and then my overall opinion on which one to buy. So first off, I'm going to say that 90% of the people should buy the 2767-20. The reason is this thing has tons of power, and don't get me wrong, this thing can rip stuff apart if you are not careful. I mean, this power is no joke. I mean, this is made to be working on heavy equipment, tractors, semi-trucks, stuff that requires some serious torque, okay? Especially if you're in a rusty area, this thing is an absolute, it's irreplaceable, okay? It's a really good tool. But if you're not careful, it can rip stuff apart. If you're working on a car, you can easily over-torque things. But with that being said, these impacts come with different speed and torque settings. So, for example, the 2767-20, I just watched a really good video this morning of them showing the different torque settings. You have number 1, number 2, number 3, and then you have breakaway. On setting 1, they got about 100 foot-pounds of fastening torque. On setting 2, they got about 400 foot-pounds of fastening torque. On setting 3, they got the full 1,000, okay? So when you're looking at these guns, because they're big and because they have a lot of power, doesn't mean that you can't choke them down. If you have to put a tire on a car, you can go to a lower setting, put the lug nuts on, not sit there and over-tighten it, but put the lug nuts on, and then use a torque wrench to finish them off, right? Because that's standard procedure. That's what you're supposed to do anyway. And especially when you're working on anything, you're supposed to torque to the correct torque using a torque wrench. Now, obviously, I know not everybody does that. And when you use an impact long enough, you know when things are being over-tightened, right? Like you have sort of a feeling of how tight something is. So you can choke these units down to go on lower torque settings. So in my opinion, it's really worth it to get the 2767-20, the biggest one here, because in the end, it's not about the 10 easy jobs that you have. It's about that one job that is just a total pain, and that's when your really expensive, good quality tools come in handy, and that's where you'll be like, man, I am really glad I got the bigger impact because I would not have been able to break that rusty bolt with the smaller unit, and I would have had to break out a breaker bar and all this different stuff, and it would have been a pain. Okay, so that's really what it's about. Now, keep in mind, there are applications for the mid-torque impact. If you are an auto tech, right, and you're working on cars and SUVs all day, and this is your kind of go-to gun that you're grabbing because 99% of the time you're going to be working with stuff that matches these torque settings, then the mid-torque impact is going to be a great gun for you. It's going to be smaller, it's going to be lighter in weight, and you're going to have less fatigue using it. So in that application, yes, I recommend getting the mid-torque impact. You know who you are if a mid-torque impact is what you need, right? If you're going to be using it all day long and it matches your torque settings. But for the average guy who is looking to basically replace a pneumatic impact or an air impact out of his toolbox and get something that's convenient that he can take and work on pretty much anything, I think the 2767-20 for the price is just your best bet. Yes, it is bigger. Yes, it is heavier, but the difference is not that huge. And if you're not using it all day long, it really is beneficial to have the higher torque ratings of the 2767-20 for when you need it. And when you don't need it, just cut down the power settings on the adjustment and use what you need. All right. I mean, it's simple as that. So I really feel that the 2767 is the best value. Get the biggest, most powerful tool you can. And if you don't have to use that power, great. But if you do ever need it, it's really nice to have it, right? Whereas if you got the smaller mid torque, you'd be kicking yourself. You'd be like, man, I wish I would have got the bigger gun, right? So that is my breakdown. If you're going to be using the tool all day and you fit those mid torque settings, go for it. But in general, I'm going to say 90 to 99% of the people are going to want to get the 2767-20 because it is just one really, really good tool. And I mentioned this in the last video, you guys. When you get this thing, you are going to wonder, you're going to look at your pneumatic guns and you're going to be like, man, I don't even know why I wasted my money on these things. Like, honestly, these guns are so impressive. They're so easy to use. You're not tripping on an air hose all day long. You're not listening to your compressor run all day long. These things are awesome. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope this helped clear up a little bit of the confusion. I didn't want it to seem like in the last video that the mid-torque impact, the 2860-20 was just like a piece of junk, because it's not. This is the one that you want to get if you're going to go mid-torque. But in general, I was more just saying that the 2767-20, the high torque version, just fits more people's application, and having that extra power can really be useful. So I hope this video was helpful. I'll post the links to both of these guns in the video description. You guys have a great day and good luck with your new impacts.